5, learning task 1 over factoring trig expressions. You may remember doing this before, but we want to remind you how it's done before your accuracy assessment next week. So the first thing they've asked us to do is factor these completely. So when we are factoring, we are just factoring. So like for example 1, this is a difference of squares. I know this because I see squareds on both of these and because I see subtraction. Difference of squares means I could take the square root of both terms and put those square roots into parentheses. And then difference of squares means I need to make one positive and one negative. Remember, when you are factoring, you are breaking things down. Once you have broken them down as much as possible, you leave them alone. So number 2 is very similar. It is also a difference of squares. And with trig, when you take the square root, it just cancels out the squareds. And just like in the last one, we make one positive and we make one negative. So to remind you, if you see things with trig, you can rewrite them with numbers and letters, factor them out, and then just put the sines and cosines or whatever trig words you see back into your expressions. So for number 3, these are both divisible by 5y, so there's a GCF. Remember, when you take out GCFs, whenever you take it out, you put it in front of your expression, and then you divide it out. So whatever's left stays in parentheses. Negative 15 divided by 5 is negative 3, and then my y's, one of them will cancel. I will have 1 left. Same thing applies with trig. Both of these have a cosine x, meaning I can factor that out. I am left with secant x and a minus 1. So the learning task for this week on task 1 will just be about factoring. So part 5, this is where I might need to use a little sum and product. So my sum is negative 8, my product is 15. So that would be a negative 3 and a negative 5. Same thing for 6. Now again, this is where I'm saying, if you notice, these are the same things just with trig. So if you are factoring trig, you can ignore the trig for the time being. You can factor it like a normal Algebra 2 expression. And then wherever you see a letter, you put the trig word back in. So if you notice, 5 and 6 are very similar. They started very similar and they ended very similar. One just has trig function words. So if you see trig, take it out, factor it like normal, then put the trig back in. So 7 and 8 are going to be similar. So with 7, I'm going to have to use blankety blank because I have a coefficient. Products of 2 are just 1 and 2, and I need them to both be negative to add up to a negative 3. 2x squared and negative 2x share a 2 and an x, so we are left with x minus 1. These will share a negative 1, so I'm left with x minus 1. So my factors are x minus 1 and 2x minus 1. So for number 8, same thing, just with the word sine. So I'm just going to take this answer wherever I see the letter x, I'm going to replace it with the word sine x. And that is how you factor trig functions.